Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. 4. On April 14th, 1912.
7. Is that a dead body? 1.
Who do you think did it? Jumpy!
Now it is time. Let our game begin.
Oh, hello, my friends. Scotty J here, back again with another episode of 9 Hours, 9 Persons, and 9 Doors. As you can see by our fun little intro bit there, we are on the final route where everything's going to get revealed, hopefully. So yeah, well, let's rock on with that. Now, like episode 15, this episode will involve a lot of jumping around to either some previously seen conversations for context, or to get a bunch of new information. Much more new than old. So let's have some fun, and we'll jump to it, all right? All right, see you in a second. All right, and we are back. So first things first, we are in the second class cabin. Just opened up the frame, got the second piece of our good friend the Funyarimpa, and we'll continue from here. All right, let's roll. Hey, Junpei, you got a minute? Santa had shown up out of nowhere and gave Junpei no small start. Here, take this. Santa pulled something out of his pocket. It looked like a bookmark. It had a 4-leaf clover in it. What is this?
I found it in between some of the cushions on the sofa. Pretty sure it ain't gonna help any of us, but I figured you might as well hang on to it.
Then why don't you hold on to it? Santa gave him a wry smile.
You know what I hate most in this world? I got 4 things. Hope, faith, love, and luck.
Hope, faith, love, and luck?
Damn straight.
And you hate these things?
Yeah, you got a problem with that?
No, not really, but... Junpei tried to figure out how best to phrase what he wanted to say. What does the bookmark have to do with any of that? Santa scratched the back of his ear and looked awkward.
Well, see, each leaf on a 4-leaf clover has a meaning to it, okay? And that meaning is pretty much those 4 words. It's like a flower language. Well, I guess it's not a flower, is it? So a leaf language, I guess. Yeah, you could call them leaf words.
Leaf words, huh? Junpei looked at the bookmark. Hope, faith, love, and luck.
So, yeah, I want you to take that, okay? Just touching it gives me the creeps. Take the damn thing, all right?
Santa pretended to shiver with disgust and shoved the bookmark into Junpei's confused hands. Junpei? What do you want to do? All right, I think we shall take it. Junpei decided to take it. After all, why shouldn't he? All right, sure, I'll take it. He shoved the thing into his pocket and gave Santa a last confused look.
Oh, phew. Man, I feel a lot better now. That thing was a real pain, you know?
Do you really hate those 4 words that much?
Yeah, well, they can all betray you, you know? Hope, faith, love, even your destiny.
What had happened to Santa, Junpei wondered. How had he become such a bitter person? All right, with that, we're going to pause and jump on ahead. See you in a second. All right, and we are back. This time, we are in the kitchen, more specifically, the freezer. So, yeah, just got locked in, opened the freezer, found some dry ice. Let's jump back into the talk, shall we? Junpei picked up some of the dry ice with his sleeve, as to avoid burning himself.
Dry ice is just frozen carbon dioxide, right?
Yeah, it is.
Wonder how warm it has to get for it to turn back to gas again.
Hell if I know. How's that going to help us anyway?
Oh, well, I figured I might be able to use it to get out of here.
They were about to move on when June spoke up. Carbon dioxide sublimation point is negative 109 degrees. Any warmer than that, it'll turn into gas. Any lower, it'll become solid. Junpei looked at her, dumbfounded. How do you know that? Despite my looks, I am the queen of random knowledge. Looks bad to mess up when you're showing off.
Argmarf. Mamba.
Oh, you're so cold your mouth's going numb?
Yes.
That's white. Oh, you're just doing that on purpose, aren't you? June giggled and did her best to hide her guilt. At least she was still feeling good enough to joke around, Junpei told himself.
Come on, guys, don't you think that's kind of weird? I don't know why it doesn't turn into a liquid first.
Santa was now shivering at an astonishing rate, but his curiosity seemed unaffected. Jim, however, was not in the mood to discuss science. You want it out of the freezer now? No, sadly, we must. It did strike Junpei as rather odd. And he couldn't help but think about it. June answered. But it can turn into a liquid. Carbon dioxide turns into a liquid if you put it at a high enough pressure. But at 1 atmosphere, normal air pressure,
It won't turn into a liquid, right?
that's right. Instead of melting, it'll do what's called sublimation and change immediately from a solid state to a gaseous one.
See, that's weird. Water's a liquid between 32 degrees and 212 degrees. So why can't... So why isn't that the case for carbon dioxide?
June replied with an answer that stunned both of them. There's actually a kind of ice that doesn't turn into a liquid when it goes above 32 degrees.
Huh?
I heard about it. Its melting point is 96 degrees. Ice with a melting point of 96 degrees?
You mean there's water that freezes at 96 degrees?
Yeah. Well, you could also look at it ice that won't melt until it's 96 degrees. Water that freezes at 96 degrees? Ice that won't melt until it's 96 degrees? Junpei was cold as hell, but this was just too interesting to ignore. He did his best to warm up by rubbing his arms and stamping his feet, and then put the question to June. So, what's this ice with a melting point of 96 degrees called? I heard it's called Ice 9.
Ice 9?
Originally, Ice 9 was a made-up substance invented by a science fiction author. But recently, scientists have discovered that such a substance actually exists. Wait, hold up. So is this thing called Ice 9, or is it just water? Like I said, if the ice is over 96 degrees, it'll be liquid. If it's under that, it'll solidify. So you could think of it as a polymorph of H2O. Here, think of it like diamonds and graphite. They're both made of carbon, right? But depending on the structure of the crystallization, the hardness and structure are completely different. So you're saying that normal water and this Ice 9 are like that? Yep. She wasn't finished. Have you heard the story about the crystallization of glycerin? Alright, so this is familiar, so we are going to pause here and jump on ahead. But, yeah. See you guys in a second. Alright, my friends, we are back and we have jumped on ahead. We're now in the operating room, going through door 7 with Clover and 7, of course. So let's jump back in, shall we? You think we should go back? Yeah, I think that's probably best. Clover nodded and left. Junpei was about to follow her when he realized that 7 wasn't following suit. Hey, 7, what's up?
Oh, well...
He looked up at Junpei distractedly, and then back down at the brown bottle he held cupped in his large hands. What's that? In response, 7 tossed the bottle gently to Junpei. He caught it and twisted it around to read the label. EDT?
EDT. It's EDT.
What kind of medicine is that?
It's not a medicine. I think it's an industrial strength detergent.
Why would they have something like that here?
Well, probably to clean stuff up.
Clean what up?
Oh, fuck if I know. Still. It looks like it cleaned my brain up.
Junpei looked up from the bottle. You remember something? 7 nodded slowly and spoke.
Well, I remember a story about EDT, at least. It happened around 50 years ago. There was this factory somewhere in America making big old EDT crystals. They're making them to sell as an industrial strength cleaner, like I told you. But, a year after the factory started up, something strange started happening with the crystals they were building. Water molecules started attaching themselves to the EDT crystals. This made them into some sort of mutation of the original crystals, called a hydrate. Once the crystal turned into a hydrate, though, it was useless as a cleaner. The factories had to dump the crystals as a hydrate. They were useless. But it didn't end there. After that day, the same thing started happening everywhere in EDT factories, even ones nowhere near the first American factory. They've been making crystals the same way, with the same material, and the same equipment and environment, but now, all of a sudden, every single crystal they formed turned into a hydrate. In fact, ever since that day, no factory anywhere has been able to make pure EDT crystal. Even in EDT research, done years before, they'd never gotten a hydrate. After it happened at the first factory, it just spread. It was like, oh man, how do you say it? Like molecules were communicating with one another? Transmitting information in a way humans couldn't perceive? This phenomenon spread throughout the world, right? Junpei looked up at 7 with half a smirk. 7 stared at him, dumbfounded. Yeah, that's it exactly. But how did you know?
Oh, I heard another story kind of like that one.
When?
In the freezer.
What, the freezer?
Junpei told Seven the story he'd heard from June in the freezer in the kitchen. How one day glycerin began to crystallize, and the story about ice that wouldn't melt at room temperature. When Junpei was done, Seven looked thoughtful, and absent-mindedly rubbed the scar on his chin.
Ice that doesn't melt at room temperature, huh?
That sound familiar?
Yeah, hold up. I feel like I can remember something. Oh, it's right there.
Seven squinted. His eyes stared off into space, as if he were trying desperately to focus on something far away. Do you... Ooh, know something about it or know about Ice 9? So let's ask him about Ice 9. Do you know about Ice 9?
Ice 9. Ice 9. Ice 9. Ice.
Suddenly, Seven's eyes shot open.
That's it! I remember now! That woman, she's on this boat!
That woman?
Alice.
Who's Alice?
Oh, come on, the woman who won't melt at room temperature.
Huh? It became clear to Seven that Junpei had no idea what he was talking about. He ran his hand across his face and took a deep breath.
You know the Titanic sank on April 15th in 1912, right?
Yeah? More than 1,500 people died. Worst maritime accident in history. What about it?
Did you hear about the boat that was sent to collect the dead bodies?
I think that was the RMS Carpathia, right? It was a cruise liner just like the Titanic.
No. That was the ship that picked up the survivors. The ship that collected the dead bodies was the CS Mackie Bennett. The Mackie Bennett showed up April 17th, 2 days after the accident. It set out from Halifax, a port in Canada, and recovered 306 bodies. The Atlantic that far north was really cold. It would have had to be, for there to be icebergs and stuff. Anyways, the bodies they pulled out of the water were frozen solid.
This isn't a very nice story. So what happened next?
Well, they say the Mackie Bennett recovered something more than just the dead bodies. There were various bits of stuff floating around in the water. Things that the drowned had carried with them, or stuff dislodged as the ship sank. One of the things they found was a coffin.
A coffin?
Yeah, a wooden one. The craftsman who'd made it must have been pretty skilled. It wasn't just a wooden coffin, it was all wood. There were no nails or reinforcements. There were no gaps in the wood anywhere. It was airtight. The crew got pretty curious about what might be inside it, so they opened it up. Had to set a wedge and a hammer to open it. It was so well made. Inside, they found a woman. Or I guess you should say found the dead body of a woman. Her hair was thick and black, and her skin was deep brown and didn't show any signs of age or decomposition. They say that she looked gorgeous, like a goddess. She was obviously dead, but anyone who looked at her said she looked just like she was sleeping. Her skin was so lifelike, she looked like she might wake up at any minute. She didn't, though. Just like the rest of the bodies they found, she was frozen solid. Eventually, the Mackie Bennett finished up the search and returned to Halifax. 306 bodies were unloaded and taken ashore. However, it was warm enough that they began to melt. They said that the stink was horrible. But there was one body that didn't thaw.
The girl in the coffin.
That's right.
Everybody thought for sure that she'd melt and start to rot like the rest of them eventually. But weeks passed and nothing happened. Then a month passed and another, and it was summer, and she was still frozen solid. After a while, people started to say that she was some sort of miracle.
Rumors about the girl started to spread, and the people came to visit Halifax from all over. After a while, people started to call her All Ice. Alice. Of course, those rumors didn't last long.
Well, why is that?
Well, she up and disappeared. One day Alice was there, and the next she wasn't. They say someone snuck in where they were keeping her and stole the body. With the body gone, the rumors followed pretty quickly. And after a while, no one remembered her. Might be able to find something about her if you could find a newspaper from back then, but that's about it.
Wait, you just said she was on this boat.
Yeah, I did. Alice has got to be somewhere on this ship.
Now, why the hell would you say something like that?
'Cause I know.
And just what is it you know?
What happened to Alice after she was stolen?
Junpei gulped. All right, tell me. What happened to Alice? Seven nodded slowly and took the look of a man recalling something long buried.
Well, around that time, the word was that there was a thriving black market in New York. I mean, I'm sure there still is, but this was special. All millionaires from all over the world. I've heard that Alice went up for auction there. The person who won the auction was Lord Dashnell Gaudane. You've heard that name before, right?
Sir Gaudane. Isn't he the guy who bought the Gigantic, the Titanic sister ship?
That's him. Although I guess he hadn't done that quite yet.
Well, what do you mean?
Gaudane bought Alice in 1912. Then 4 years later in 1916, he bought the Gigantic. And he hid Alice somewhere on the Gigantic. But nobody knows where. He died in 1931. And apparently he died without ever telling anyone where Alice was hidden.
However what?
Well, he did have one close friend who asked him, "Where is Alice?" And he said, "Alice sleeps in a small chamber past the Forest of Knowledge, beneath the navel of the Gigantic."
What the hell is that? Some kind of riddle?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Seven threw up his hands in defeat.
So that's it. Whatever you think, I believe it. She's hidden somewhere on the Gigantic. In other words, she's hidden somewhere on this ship.
Before Jim could dispute Seven's rather bizarre claim, they heard Clover's voice from the door. She did not sound pleased. All right, and that is where our jumping off point is. So I will pause, and I'll see y'all in a second again. All right, and we are back once again. So still actually indoor 7 this time. We just finished up the room, and Seven's got something to say real quick.
Hey, hold on.
Junpei stopped, about to put the key into the doorknob. What's up?
Where's Clover?
Huh? Junpei turned around. Clover was nowhere to be seen. Ah, goddammit, where the hell did she go? Okay, just hold on a minute, I'll go get her.
Sure thing.
Junpei left Seven at the door and headed back to the operating room. He found her, sitting next to the operating table. She was staring at the mannequin. Hey, Clover, what's wrong? Come on, let's get out of here. She didn't respond. If she hadn't been standing up and breathing, Junpei might have thought she was dead. What are you doing? Did you want to come back here and say goodbye to John? It wasn't the best joke, but it was something, an attempt to lighten the mood. Clover, however, didn't laugh. She stood stock still and said nothing. Hey, Clover, can you hear me? Perhaps it was something he'd said, or perhaps it was something else. Suddenly her mouth opened, and she whispered in a dry, dead voice. My brother might be dead. Huh? That's why we couldn't find him. If he's dead, I'm gonna be next. Suddenly the operating room felt very, very cold. What are you talking about? What's wrong with you? He gave her a small shake, but she still didn't respond. The silence grew heavier. Junpei, what do we want to do? Tell Clover that we need to leave? Or let's give Clover the 4-leaf clover, shall we? Oh, yeah. He didn't know why, but suddenly Junpei remembered something he'd been given earlier. He reached into his pocket and dug it out. A 4-leaf clover. Santa had given it to him in the second-class room. He held it out to Clover. Do you know what each leaf on the 4-leaf clover means something? Hope, faith, love, and luck. Take it. Use it as a good luck charm. He pressed the 4-leaf clover into her hand. Listen to me, Clover. No matter what happens, you can never lose hope. You have to remember what's most important, and that's to have faith and to have love. You can remember all these things. That'll bring you good luck. Snake, your brother, he's not dead. He's alive, somewhere, I'm sure of it. You just gotta believe in that. Clover stared at the 4-leaf clover in her hand. He could see tears start to form out the corners of her eyes. Thank you. Her voice was tiny and broken, and as she spoke, she started to cry. She tried to hide her tears by looking at the floor, but it did little good. She wiped away her tears with the baggy arms of her jacket, but more quickly took their place. No matter how she tried, she couldn't stop crying. Her tears made small wet circles on the floor. Thank you, she said it again, then looked up at Junpei and seemed to choke down the last of her grief. She did her best to smile. Junpei wiped an errant tear from her cheek with his thumb. and gave her the best smile he could manage. Now, come on. Seven's waiting for us at the exit. But still, she didn't move. Wait, before we go, there's one thing I want to ask you. What's that? What do you think of when you hear the word experiment? For a moment, his mind froze. Then he came back to his senses and realized the word meant nothing to him, aside from the dictionary definition. What? Oh, huh. I guess it's just a coincidence then. I mean that you knew about the four-leaf clover. Oh, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a jerk, but you're making less than no sense right now. No, it's nothing, just forget about it. Oh, don't give me that. You really think I could just drop this? What's this experiment you were talking about? Clover looked away. The four-leaf clover was still in her hand. She stared at it for a long moment and then finally spoke. You promise you won't tell anyone? Cross my heart. Really? Really? I can trust you, right? Of course you can. Clover slipped the four-leaf clover into her pocket. Her eyes still red from crying, she looked up at Junpei. Okay then, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what happened on this ship 9 years ago. Whoa, wait. On this ship? Yeah, this ship. He was entirely lost. He had 1,000 questions, but it was probably best, he thought, to save them until Clover had finished. It was an experiment to test some sort of psychic thing. Something about communicating through these fields that you can't see. Fields that you can't see? He heard something like this before. Clover nodded. Just think about this. She pointed at the operating table. On top of it was a somewhat mismatched mannequin whose parts had been swapped with another mannequin. This is John, right? But is he really John? All Junpei could think was, she's finally completely lost it. Isn't this like Locke's sock, or the ship of Theseus? Junpei grew even more confused. He'd never heard of either of those things, although they sounded smart. Oh, you don't know? You haven't heard of these paradoxes? Junpei shook his head. Clover laughed. Huh, okay, well, pay attention then. This is how Locke's sock works. Let's say I've got a pair of socks, and they're my favorite socks. One of them gets a hole in it. So what do you do with if this was your sock, Junpei? I would patch it up. Well, I guess I'd patch it up. I'd get some cloth and close up the hole. But what if another hole opens? I guess I'd add another patch. What if another hole opened after that? Another patch, I guess? Well, let's just say you keep adding new patches, until eventually the original cloth of the sock is totally gone. Once you get to that point, can you really say they're the same sock you started with? Oh, that's tough. Junpei crossed his arms. So that's the Locke's sock thing, yes? Yeah. The ship of Theseus is a lot like it. The ship of Theseus. If you keep fixing the damaged parts of the ship, eventually it ends up as nothing with none of the parts it started with. Can you really say that this ship is the same that you started with? And what if you took all those old parts from the first ship and built another one somewhere else? Then which ship is the real ship? The one you repaired, or the one you built with all the original parts? It was an interesting question. Clover could see Junpei was intrigued. Hey, do you think it's the same? What's the same? These guys. Is this John? Or is it Lucy now? Junpei looked at the operating table again. A mannequin full of body parts from a different body. Clover had been right. It was just like Locke's sock in the ship of Theseus. Part of the body that holds a person's identity is the head. Of course, for many hundreds of years, conventional wisdom has held that man's identity resided in his heart, or any number of internal organs. John's head and heart were both his, but apart from that, a single arm, the rest of his body had once been Lucy's. Was that mannequin really John? We're just like these mannequins. She looked at Junpei again. Well, think about it. The cells in our bodies change every day. Old ones die and new ones are born. Maybe part of my arm is made of stuff from a fish I once ate. Maybe part of your right side is from a cow you ate. If you take it a little further, those cows and fishes are made from something else too, right? That's how we're all connected, through fields that can't be seen with the naked eye. The silence was broken by Seven.
Hey, what the hell is taking you two so long?
Seven's head appeared in the doorway. He was not happy.
How long you gonna keep making me wait? You don't have the time to screw around.
Junpei and Clover looked at each other. Clover looked at Junpei as if to say there's more she wanted to tell him. She shook her head. Whatever she had to tell him, though, didn't want to tell him in front of Seven. Seven seemed to catch on.
Oh, what were you two doing? Was this some sort of secret meeting?
No, it wasn't. We were just playing with the mannequins.
Huh?
Let's go, Junpei. Moving a little bit too fast to be entirely innocent, Clover headed towards the exit. Seven stared after her, then tuned to Junpei with an amused expression.
Playing with the mannequins, huh? Didn't know you were into that kind of thing, Junpei.
Yeah, you're a dick.
Yeah, a little bit.
Alright, anywho, we are going to jump on ahead from here. 1 second. Alright, and we are back. Now, we're on through door number 1 with Ace and Clover. Just found the pocket watch. Let's see how this conversation goes. Maybe it's a little different than what we remember. A voice he hadn't expected startled Junpei from his examination of the pocket watch.
Oh, a pocket watch. Might I take a look at it?
He spun around to find Ace, standing in the doorway. Junpei shrugged and handed him the pocket watch. Hey man, what are you doing over in this room?
Oh, I just thought I'd come check up on the two of you. Is there a problem?
Yeah, there is! No, we're just gonna say there's not a problem. We're not here to fight Ace. Yet. Well, not a problem, but it was a lie. All Junpei wanted to do was to get rid of Ace right now. He'd sent Ace to the wheelhouse at the beginning for a reason. There was something he meant to ask Clover, and he meant to ask her in private. There was something he wanted to ask her, and he didn't want anyone else to hear him ask it. He also knew that Clover would likely remain silent if anyone else was around when he asked. That was why he was so desperate to send Ace to the wheelhouse. Ace opened his mouth, then took another look at the Junpei, shut it again, and a small smirk appeared on his face.
Oh, I see. Of course.
He looked Junpei over, then glanced at Clover.
I apologize for the intrusion. Well, best of luck.
Ace gave Junpei a knowing pat on the shoulder and left. Phew. Junpei let out a sigh and brushed off a few drops of sweat from his forehead. He turned and found himself looking straight into Clover's eyes. She heard what Ace had said. She regarded Junpei with caution. What was that about? She was clearly suspicious, and with good reason. Junpei's eyes widened and held up his hands in a gesture of innocence. Oh, no, it's not like that. What's it like then? Oh, I just wanted to hear the rest of the story. I didn't get a chance to ask you about it until now. What story? About the experiment. Remember, the one you started to tell me about in the operating room? You said something about an experiment that happened here 9 years ago. Clover bit her lip. She stared down at the floor for several long moments, and when she spoke, it was barely audible. I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm just not in the mood, okay? You understand, right? I keep thinking about my brother. I can't stop. I mean, who would do something like that to my brother? I can't forgive them. I'm not going to let them get away with it. They're going to pay for it. I promise. So... Her shoulders were shaking. Drops of blood had sprung up from her lips where she'd been biting them. She wiped it off and looked at Junpei with eyes fierce and angry. Junpei? Who do you think did it? Her voice was cold and scarcely above a whisper. Junpei gulped. Well, if what Seven said is right, then it had to at least have been 2 of them. And you need 3 people to open the numbered door, so if you subtract Snake, that means at least 2 other people. You're right. So what does that mean? Well, if we just look at the bracelet numbers, we should be able to figure it out. Who could have opened door 3 with Snake? Well, really, who, and who? You mean it could have been 4 people? Well, technically it's possible. I don't know. That doesn't seem very likely. Well, why? I'll tell you later. Why don't we just assume it was only 2 people for now? Okay, got it. Let's do that then. Then who do you think it could be? Junpei crossed his arms and thought. Snake's bracelet number was 2. Which two bracelet numbers, added to 2, would give them the digital root of 3? Which two numbers would do such a thing? Could it be Ace and Santa? No. Ace and June? No. Ace and 7? No. Ace and Lotus? Nope, that's only 9. It had to have been Santa and 7. I think all the rest of these options don't make sense. Yep. Santa and 7. Would it be Santa and 7? 2 plus 3 plus 7 equals 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 3. Could it really be? Were Santa and 7 the killers? What's wrong? Clover looked at Junpei, and he looked back at her. There was no point in hiding it. He told her his conclusion. That's what I thought. She looked less surprised than he had expected. Santa and 7. If it were 2 people, that's the only combination that works. Whoa, hey, wait a minute there. Don't you think it's a little too early to be jumping to conclusions? Well, all I said was that those 2 would be able to open the door 3 with your brother. There might be other possibilities. Well, what other possibilities? He didn't have an answer. He was ready to admit defeat when Clover spoke. Are you saying that you think 3 or 4 people could have done it? I really don't think that's likely. Well, why? Can I borrow your pen and paper? Clover put her hand out expectantly. Junpei pulled out his pen and pad of paper and handed them to her. She opened the notebook and wrote down several simple addition problems. Eventually, she had 8 which provided the digital root of 3. A. 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 6 equals 12. B. 2 plus 1 plus 4 plus 5 equals 12. 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 8 equals 21. 2 plus 5 plus 6 plus 8 equals 21. 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 7 plus 8 equals 21. 2 plus 1 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8 equals 21. G, 2 plus 1 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 equals 21. And H, 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 7 equals 21. What's this? These are the combinations for 3 or 4 people. These 8 combos are the only possible ones. I see. Junpei? Yeah? I can trust you, right? Well, of course. Why would you need to ask that? Really? Yeah. So I should get rid of B, D, G, and H, right? Well, of course. Just cross them on out. And you should take off yours too, you know, the ones with 4. So what does that leave? Leaves A and E. 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 6 equals 12. 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 7 plus 8 equals 21. Oh, wait. Well, it can't be A. Well, why not? Well, because June's in that one. There's no way in hell she'd do something like that. Are you sure? I'd bet my life on it. Okay, then. I can cross off A2, right? Yeah. Well, what have we got left? Just E. 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 7 plus 8 equals 21. Do you know what that means? Everyone besides me, you, and June would be working together. And do you think that's likely? If there were 4 people working together, they wouldn't have to be very cautious. I don't think they try hard to hide that they were doing if they outnumbered us. Well, you do have a point. And besides, if Ace and 7 are working together, they could have easily gotten rid of me when I went into the shower room with them. But they didn't. They didn't even try anything. If they were the killers, why wouldn't they? Her voice was calm, but Junpei had only to look at her eyes to know it was a forced calm. There were tears forming in the corners of her eyes. She was blinking furiously to keep them back. Perhaps by attempting an objective analysis of who might have killed her brother, she was able to distance herself from the harsh reality of his death. The more she struggled to act unconcerned, though, the more Junpei felt his heart tighten. Okay, yeah, well that does make sense. It seems pretty unlikely that it was as many as 3 or 4 people. Yeah, and that means there's a good chance it was Santa and 7. That's how it looks. But why would they do it? There was a moment of silence. I think I know. Well, what is it? He laid his hand gently on her shoulder. He was so close to the answer. When Ace chose the worst possible moment to return. He raised a knowing eyebrow and then spoke. Have I interrupted something? What do you want? Oh, there's something I wanted to speak with you about, Junpei. Could you come with me? He turned on his heel and walked back towards the wheelhouse. Junpei looked over at Clover. He gave her a short nod and hoped that she would be willing to talk with him again, and followed Ace. All right. And with that, actually, all he does is pull us into the wheelhouse, and we complete the rest of the room that way. So, yeah, we will skip on ahead to one more spot, and then we won't have any more skipping, all right? All right. 1 second. All right, my friends, and we are back. We are now in the captain's quarters. Just clicked the keyboard, found the dead body, and we see that the thing says 0. Let's continue our talk now, shall we? Heh. Junpei snorted with a grim humor for the second time since he'd come into this room. The 4 screens along the bottom had a single letter each, spelling out Z-E-R-O. Junpei felt as though he was being mocked. The real villain was somewhere, laughing at him. What do you think? He turned to Clover, who was standing next to him. Her voice was almost too low to hear. Nothing. It seemed that she cared about little. Of course, Junpei could hardly blame her. Given the strain she was surely under, Junpei was somehow surprised she responded at all. Still, he had to ask. He gestured towards the corpse. What about him? Do you think that's the real 0? Clover shook her head weakly. There's no way that's him. Didn't I tell you already? 0 is one of us. Yeah, you're right. Well, even if he wasn't one of us, there's no way this man could be 0. Well, don't you get it? The letters that spell 0 on the TV screen, the captain's clothes he's got on, and of course the bracelet with the 0 on it. It's too obvious. Look, this is 0, right here! This dead body is 0! Doesn't that seem kind of funny to you? You're right. Only an idiot wouldn't see through something like that. Well, no, that's not the point. I'm not trying to make fun of them for thinking a trick like this would work. I'm sure they didn't think it would work. Which makes me wonder, well, why did they do it? I think this is a challenge. A challenge from the person who's really behind all of this. He's making fun of us. Don't you get it? If whoever killed this guy really wanted us to think this corpse was 0, they'd never put a bracelet on him. Walking around with a 0 bracelet would just be like hanging a sign around your neck that says, I did it! Anyone with a brain would be able to see that this guy was supposed to look like everything 0 was supposed to be. Just like we did. The killer must have known we wouldn't think he was really 0, and put the bracelet on him anyway. Do you know why? Why? Well, like I said, I think he's mocking us. Too bad, suckers! This isn't 0! It's the same bad joke a lot of criminals like to play. They sit back and watch people running around in circles. Look, here I am! What's wrong, guys? Come on, catch me! Catch me if you can! That's really twisted. It almost seems kind of childish. Yeah, you're right. It is really childish. It's just like a game to whoever this person is. That's what just seems so funny to me. Junpei bent down next to the corpse. Alright, let's get back to the point. Who killed this man? I don't know. And what's this guy's deal? Who is he? How would I know that? If I knew anything, I would have told you. You have no idea who he is? Why would I? Junpei sat back on his haunches and thought. We should check and see if he's got anything on him that might tell us who he is. Give me a hand here, Clover. What? We gotta flip him over. How else are we gonna search his pockets? Clover didn't move. Junpei had no choice but to move the body on his own. He grabbed hold of an area not completely covered in blood and shoved. It took a moment, but eventually, Junpei felt the man's bulk begin to shift. But just as it did, something fell from the man's left wrist. The bracelet with the 0 on its face.
Leslie, let's discuss how to remove the bracelets. There are only 2 ways to do so. 1, you escape from this ship. 2, your heart rate reaches 0. In other words, once the bracelet is taken outside the confines of this ship, or detects that its wearer's heartbeat has fallen to 0, it will shut down automatically.
Junpei stared at the bracelet. This man, He's dead, isn't he? Huh? Well, no, it's just... I didn't really think about it until right now. If his bracelet was off, that'd mean he's dead. Well, it's pretty obvious that he's dead. You don't really need to look at his bracelet to figure that one out. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's pretty obvious. He looks a lot better than the other bodies we've seen, though, you know? I mean, if it wasn't for all this blood, he'd almost look like he was still alive. I mean, I know it's kind of a messed up thing to say, but he kind of has it better, you know? Dying from a bomb going off inside you? I mean, that's just... Oh, some of Snake's bones went right through his skin. I think the explosion must have thrown him against a wall or something. There's broken bones just sticking out of his left arm. Suddenly, Junpei realized what the fuck he was saying. How could he have been so cruel? He clapped his hands over his mouth. But it was already too late. He turned to look at Clover. She was glaring at him furiously. What did you say? Her words sounded cold. He knew an apology could hardly atone for what he'd done, but he tried anyway. Oh man, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I really don't know what I was thinking. I mean, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What did you say about his arm? His arm? Yes, his left arm. You said it, didn't you? Well, yeah, I did, but, I mean, didn't you see it too? Of course not. I could barely look at him. Clover took a deep, quick breath. Are you sure it was his left arm? Junpei thought back. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And he had broken bone, right? What the hell are you getting at here? Just shut up and answer me. She shoved her face closer to his. He could see the fire in her eyes. Junpei winced and swallowed. Yeah, he did. It was pretty bad too. The bone was sticking out of his arm. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than Clover's expression changed. Suddenly, she was crying. Junpei wasn't really sure what to do. Thank you. It was close to the last thing he expected to hear. Junpei had no idea what had just happened. He didn't think he'd done anything worthy of thanks, and he couldn't understand why she would have chosen that moment to begin crying. So he simply stood there, confused. Thank you, Junpei. She thanked him again, and then something even stranger happened. Oh, big hug. Clover threw herself into Junpei's surprised arms. Hey, what's going on with you? I'm sorry, I'm really happy. Why? The body in the shower room. It isn't his. It isn't my brother. Uh-huh. It's not Snake. Why on earth do you think that? Because his left arm is... She stopped herself. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be talking about this. Junpei decided it would be prudent to not press her. It would be prudent to not press her for any more information. If she did not wish to tell him, she certainly had a reason for doing so. Perhaps more importantly, however, if Clover was so certain, then she was likely right. That meant the body in the shower room wasn't Snake. It wasn't much, but that knowledge lifted some of the weight from Junpei's heart. He's still alive. I'm so happy. Tears shone in her eyes. Those tears melted Junpei's heart. As she cried, she pushed herself up from against his chest, like a child. Junpei put his arms around her and held her tight. Junpei, you were right. No matter what happens, you can never lose hope. You have to remember what's most important. That's to have faith and to have love. If you remember all those things, it'll bring you good luck. Clover reached into her pocket and pulled something out. It was a laminate bookmark with a 4-leaf clover on it. I only made it here because you gave me this. I was suspicious of everyone, and I was angry and miserable. Because I had this 4-leaf clover, because of what you said to me, Junpei hadn't thought his words would have such an effect on her. Her words making him feel a little awkward. Thank you. Thank you so much, Junpei. She looked at him. He scratched his nose and pretended to notice something interesting somewhere else in the room. If you really want to thank someone, you should be thanking Santa. Santa? Why? Well, he was the one who gave me that thing. And the words for each leaf, I got that from him too. Then suddenly, Clover broke away from Junpei. Huh? He looked confused. He hadn't thought she'd react that poorly. Clover began to pace around the room. 6 steps to the left, 6 to the right. Another 6 to the left. And then she stopped. Did Santa really tell you those things? Her eyes were serious, but not angry. Yeah, he did. Did I say something wrong? No, not at all. In fact, this could be really good news, I think. You think? Santa knew about the words and the clover. The only people who should know about that are the other subjects. Subjects? The other people who were in the experiment 9 years ago with my brother and I. Whoa! But he's blind, and I was part of the Nevada test group, so neither of us were able to recognize the faces of the people who were on this boat. Whoa. Time out. Junpei held up his hands. He took a deep breath and let it out. Let's just calm down for a second, okay? Start from the top. Don't start with the end and then jump to the middle. You gotta start at 1 and move to 2, 3, and 4, and so on. If you don't tell me stuff in the right order, I'm never gonna be able to figure it out. Clover nodded. All right, let's start with this experiment. What happened on this boat 9 years ago? Do you know about the morphogenetic field? He did, and that realization sent shivers down Junpei's spine. All right, how about this? The theory of telepathic mechanism. Junpei recounted what Lotus had told him earlier. Clover nodded. Telepathy, huh? That's not really it, but I suppose it's similar. So they were testing telepathy on this ship? Yeah, I guess so. So what exactly did they have you guys do? The same thing that we're doing now. Exactly the same thing. Whoa, what? The nonary game. 9 people were put on this boat, and 9 others were put in the building in Nevada, and the game started. Junpei grabbed the sides of his head. Look, I'm sorry, but I don't get it. What does this nonary game and some telepathic experiment have to do with each other? Clover bit her lip. She blinked back sudden tears. What had happened to her in Nevada? The ability to access a morphogenetic field is affected by a couple of things. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger. You know how sometimes when you're up against a really tough problem, and then the answer just kind of pops into your head? That's an epiphany. And what you learn from an epiphany can be transmitted with telepathy. When you add danger to that equation, then it gets easier to transmit that information over telepathy. So you're saying the notary game was supposed to introduce that element of danger? Yeah, but it couldn't just be any old danger. It had to be life and death. And someone did actually die. A girl. Junpei felt the sudden grip of despair on his heart. Something deep and distant and powerful squeezed, and for a moment he felt very empty and alone. She was on the boat with my brother. I was in Nevada, so I never met her, but I did hear her name. Her name was, The sound of the door opening was like a gunshot. Junpei spun around.
Oh, my apologies. I seem to have disturbed you.
Ace?
You two must have strong stomachs. I can't imagine how you could stay in this room for so long.
Ace glanced down at the floor, at the corpse, covered in blood.
At any rate, Junpei, would you be so kind as to come with me and help with something? Having a little trouble, and I could really use your assistance. Oh, come on, it'll only take a moment.
With that, he turned and walked back towards the communications office. Clover waited until he was out of sight, and then spoke in a small, quiet voice. I don't want Ace to hear us. We can talk about this later. Uh-huh? Hey, wait! Clover ignored him. From outside, Junpei could hear Ace calling.
Junpei, what are you doing in there? Hurry up!
Grumbling to himself, Junpei stomped off towards the communications office. And that, actually, is, I think, where we are going to leave it today. So, hey, that was a good set of information I think we learned today. Hopefully, some of it's adding up. There was 2 notary games played simultaneously, 1 in Nevada and 1 on this very ship. So, that's freaky. Guess we'll find out more next time. Anyway, this is Scotty J signing off, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye!